Good afternoon, and welcome to episode 28 of At the Coffee Table podcast. I'm Jason Klink, your host, and today's podcast has been brought to you by JJK Professional Services. It's consulting and professional services for all types of organizations. So the At the Coffee Table podcast is where we pull up a virtual chair to the coffee table, discuss everything and anything. I wanted to do today's podcast based on an article that I heard earlier today. I was listening to one of my favorite podcasts, and they were talking about an article that was written by a quote unquote millennial. And the article was about millennials missing the signs of prosperity. And it really put a thought in my head is, could this be true that you're missing this? And outside of the current environment with pandemic and social justice and all of this, could it really be true that people are missing the signs of prosperity? We live in the most prospered or wealthy countries, probably if not the wealthiest country on the globe, and with the most opportunity to make money, the most opportunity to be successful, to progress forward. And it just kind of blew my mind that there could be generations that don't recognize the signs of prosperity. Now I'm going to age myself a little bit. I'm a kid of the 80s. And in the 80s, and maybe it's the age group, the younger age group, that it's easy to miss these signs. But I know growing up in the 80s, there always seemed to be a struggle. And I come from a middle class family. But even back then, salaries weren't as high. You were middle class and $30,000 salaries. Interest rates, mortgage rates here. We'll discuss what I know best. Mortgage rates in the 80s, I've heard it were anywhere from 9 to like 17%. Mortgage rates right now are 3%. They wobble over 3%. Then I think about even further into the real estate business, where right now there's buyers that well outweigh the homes that are for sale, but you have multiple offer situations where you have 10 and 15, sometimes up to 20 offers on a home. And not only are people going 10, 15, $20,000 over asking, they're putting 20 and 25% down. If that's not a sign of prosperity because of financial security, I don't know what is. If you look at, home values have gone up 7% in the last year. These are the things I'm familiar with, so that's why I'm kind of relating it to this topic. And, it's tough for me to kind of grasp the concept that you could not be afforded the same opportunities across the board. And yes, I know about social injustice and inequalities that go on in this country, but we all have the same access, the same freedoms. I mean, granted, some of our freedoms have been slowly eroded over the last 6 months, but we all have the same freedoms, the same opportunity to go out for coffee and to drive a car and to buy food and have the internet and to have a computer. And realistically these days, to have prosperity and to make money, anybody can be an entrepreneur. Hell, I'm doing it or trying to do it. And I'm a kid from the 80s that you went to high school, you graduated high school, you went to college, because that's the only way you could be successful. You went to college, you had to graduate with at least a 4-year degree, and then you found a job that you worked in for 30 years until you built a retirement nest egg and hope that at 55, 60, or 62 years old, you can retire with this nest egg, and that was your prosperity. So you could be comfortable in the last 20 years of your life if you were lucky. Now we have instant gratification, instant connection, the constant connection. And if you can't figure out, if you're in a tough situation, and everybody's in tough situations, and I'm not by any means going to make light of the current situation, the current environment. There's businesses that are being closed because of being in lockdown. There's people losing their jobs, but there's opportunity out there. If you look at one of the biggest political pundits right now is the financial security of the country. But just the other day, and I know the financial markets, the stock market's different than the financial stability of the country, but it's almost a thermostat when you look at the stock market and people still participating in the stock market. And they had, a yearly high the other day where the Dow closed over 29% or $29,000. So if you look at all the signs, it's tough not to see signs of prosperity. So going back to being instantly connected and instant gratification, but you can run a business and not have a brick and mortar and have that overhead cost. You can run a business and not have to travel around to be a traveling salesman and knock on doors because you can do it all virtually, digitally. Um, you know, I wish I invested in Zoom about 7 months ago, because Zoom's stock took off like 300% over the last 6 months. So you have the opportunity to sit down, and all it takes is learning, trying to absorb and learn and consume as much as you can in order to, take advantage of opportunities that are out there. A lot of businesses had, and I talked about this before, a lot of businesses had to redevelop themselves and pivot a few times. Food service had to pivot and do curbside pickup and delivery. And, for a lot of businesses, as I stated before, maybe that overhead cost of a $15,000 a month rent payment, lease payment for your brick and mortar, all of a sudden isn't all that cost effective anymore. You look at companies like Google and Microsoft and so on that are for the foreseeable future having their employees stay and work at home, and have that ability to have a virtual office, work at home. And I have the same opportunity as well. I just, if you take the time to learn and you take the time to really open your eyes to what's out there. Now, there's no doubt about it that the top 1% are controlling a lot of what goes on in this country, and they're controlling politics. We are still of the people, for the people, and come November, I'm not going to make this political, but come November, we still have the power to control the politics if we see fit. But you have to look at now. The country's trillions of dollars in debts because the politicians like to spend money like they're making it. But the possibility of going out there and creating your own wealth is, just, it takes one idea. It really, takes one idea to go out there and market it and get an audience and get customers and a customer base in order to provide for yourself. And I've seen over the last 3 years is, side hustles have become the thing in the norm, where you could work a full-time job and you work your 9 to 5 and work on a side hustle from 6 to 11, in order to bolster and reinforce your income. That's the way I landed in real estate, was working a full-time job, still work a full-time job, and trying to run a couple of businesses just to, because I have a goal ahead of me that I want to hit. So to think about a whole generation not recognizing prosperity and the opportunities that are available to us in this country, I think is in the eyes of the beholder, so to say. You got to open your eyes and open your ears and see what's right in front of you. So I just wanted to give my 2 cents on this article that I saw today or heard today. And I'd be interested in what anybody else might think about the fact that we could be missing out on prosperity. Do you think the good times will roll on? Do you think that we're headed for, you always hear about recessions and depressions? Are we one market crash away from a major recession or a major depression? Who knows? But because of the technology that's available to us, I think it'll be more difficult to have that serious crash of financials when the ability to run a business virtually is there. My coach talks about how he has clients all over the world, really, and he doesn't have to go travel to meet with them because he just gets online and has an online meeting. And that's how you keep the business going. And depending on the business, now granted, if you're manufacturing or your service, no, not service based, but product based, it's a little bit more involved, or could be a lot more involved. But the signs of prosperity are there. And if you're a business that might be failing, or your business owner and it might be failing because of the current environment, take a look at the other options. Where can you sidetrack off to in order to bolster your business? What other side product or service can you tack on to bolster your customer base? I know for the full-time job that I work, that's what we've been doing for the last few months, is looking at the different avenues to be able to bolster the company and already build upon what's been created. That's super important in order to continue the prosperity. So with that being said, listen, like, comment, and share. I'd love to hear your comments, or read your comments and see what you think about this. Share it with anybody else that you think might have an opinion on it. But as always, I pull up my chair with any guests that I might have to the virtual coffee table and discuss everything and anything, and hopefully come to a solution here and there that brings some kind of value to our listeners out there. So with that being said, everybody have a happy and safe Labor Day weekend. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Have a great day.